Accessibility for the City of Worcester. This is the regular monthly meeting for the Human Rights Commission. Today is Monday, December 22nd, 2025. We are coming to you virtually only. We are recording this message or this meeting as we are required to do. So if you do not want to be recorded, you should leave the meeting or not speak or whatever you choose to do, but it's not an option for us to not record. I'll take a roll call of the members present and then yield to the chair to run the agenda. Chairperson Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Here.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman.
Is probably on his way.
Clerk Carrie Witherell.
Here.
Member Rob Bellata.
Here.
Member Dr. Bernard Reese.
Here.
Member Anahit Marudian.
Here.
Member Drew Schneblin prearranged that he would not be present this evening. Reverend Jonathan Slavinskis.
Present here.
Thank you. And member Jacqueline Yang also prearranged that she would not be present. We do have a quorum of the members present, so I will yield to the chair, Guillermo Creamer Jr., to run the meeting.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. Happy holidays. Great time of year. I know that it's easy for some and hard for others. So just want to acknowledge that emotions are varying during this time of year. So I hope that for each of you, it's a peaceful and fun time. Commissioner Bellata, if I'm not mistaken, today will be your last commission meeting. And so I just again want to thank you for the work that you've done on the commission. And I look forward to what comes next for you. We already did our formal acknowledgement last month, so we'll leave it at that. I am going to start the meeting by doing our key terms with Carrie, and then I'll do the land acknowledgement, and then we'll open it for public comment, if any, and then we'll just get straight into commission business. Alrighty? All right, Dr. Carrie, you want to take it away with some key terms?
Absolutely. Human Rights Commission mission. The HRC was established to promote the city's human rights policy. It is the policy of the city to assure that every individual shall have equal access to and benefit from all public services, to protect every individual in the enjoyment and exercise of civil rights, and to encourage and bring about mutual understanding and respect among all individuals of the city. It is the goal of the HRC to ensure that all city residents are treated fairly and equally by eliminating bigotry, discrimination, intolerance, and prejudice. Our work requires us to address institutional racism so that as a community we can achieve racial equity. Our work also requires us to make visible the unheard, unearned, and unquestioned privilege enjoyed by some members of our community to the detriment of others. We take time to make this acknowledgement to educate so that a path can be cleared for healing. Key terms: institutional racism. The term institutional racism refers specifically to the ways in which institutional policies create different outcomes for different racial groups. The institutional policies may never mention any racial groups, but their effect is to create advantages for whites and oppression and disadvantage for people from groups classified as people of color. Racial equity. The term racial equity is the active state in which race does not determine one's livelihood or success. It is achieved through proactive work to address root causes of inequalities to improve outcomes for all individuals. That is, through the elimination or shifting of policies, practices, attitudes, and cultural messages that reinforce different outcomes by race or fail to eliminate them. In privilege. The term privilege describes the unearned social power and informal institutions of society to all members of a dominant group. For example, white privilege and male privilege. Privilege is usually invisible to those who have it because we are not trained to see it, but nevertheless, it puts them at an advantage against those who do not have it. And back to you, Guillermo.
Thank you. I'm going to do the land acknowledgement, which is a practice that we continue to do, and so I'm grateful that we do. I want to acknowledge the traditional ancestral territory on the First Peoples of Massachusetts on which land we are convening on tonight. The Nipmuc Nation is what is now Worcester County. While the Nipmuc Nation predates written history, records from the 1600s inform us that the original inhabitants of Worcester dwelled principally in 3 locations: Packagug, Tatsit, and Wigwam Hill. It is important to make this acknowledgement and to honor the ancestors that have come before us. Unfortunately, it is all too easy to live on this land without ever hearing the traditional names and history of the people who first resided and prospered in these lands and continue to reside and prosper. All right, I'm gonna open it up to public comment. If there's a member of the public that would like to share any words, now is the time to do so. It could be about anything on the agenda, so please feel free to raise your hand and Pat can acknowledge you. Okay, being none, we'll move forward to commission business. Can I get an approval to approve I'm sorry, can I get a motion to approve the minutes from
I
prior
make a
months?
motion to approve the minutes. I second the motion.
Great, so it was a motion from Father Jonathan with a second from Dr. Reese. And Pat, can I get a roll call, please?
Absolutely. So we have a motion to approve the minutes from the prior meeting made by Reverend John Slavinskas, seconded by Dr. Bernard Reese. Member of the roll call of the members present, please. Guillermo Creamer Jr., Chair.
Aye.
Carrie Witherell, Clerk.
Aye.
Reverend John Slavinskas.
Aye.
Dr. Bernard Reese.
Aye.
Rob Bellotta.
Aye.
And Anahit Merudian.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Awesome, thanks. Just a couple of quick housekeeping stuff. So as 2026 rapidly approaches us, I have asked Pat to share a calendar of the year ahead. So that way we all kind of have an understanding as to what the year looks like. I will say 3 of us will technically be up. And I think it's varying in months. Is that correct, Pat? We all vary different months.
I think they're all April 30th, as I
Oh,
sent
they're
you.
all- Okay.
Yep.
All right. So 3 of us are up in April. I am one of those 3. And so it is, again, at the discretion of the city manager as to whether or not he reappoints us or not. So it is, I'm on the list, Jacqueline Yang is on the list, and Randy Feldman is on the list. So that's stuff to
I
keep
believe-
in
excuse
mind,
me.
given the fact that 2 of the individuals are members of leadership for the commission. So start thinking about that. You know, obviously we're a couple months away, but April will be here sooner rather than later. So just start thinking about that. And then the reason why I asked Pat to start to circulate a calendar is because I really want us to be present for these meetings, right? My goal obviously is to see many of you in person. I know that that's not always possible and we have the remote option for now, and so I'm grateful for that. But again, when Pat does circulate that, please understand that that's a priority, and I hope that you consider it that way. And if you're looking at the calendar and you see that, you know, you're going to be out a lot, like, please talk to us about that, right? Like, should we consider alternatives? Like, is this something that is suitable for your time and stuff? Those are all things I want you to think about. I'm not asking anyone to make any drastic decisions today. It's more so like, what is the commitment that we're each giving to this commission? Dr. Reese, I see your hand up.
Yes, to the chair. I thought I was on that list also for April 26th. Can you give some clarity on that, Pat?
I think you're on for 27, right, Pat?
I believe so. I think there was a correction, Dr. Reese. I
Okay.
think it was for you that the city had published the wrong term, but I'm not 100% who that's for. I'll have to go back and look at it because I only sent the chair the list of the people who were up in 2026. I didn't look ahead to 2027 yet.
No, because I thought mine was up for 26 also. So I'm just asking for clarity. Thank you very much.
You weren't on the list of the 3, but I will double check.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So yeah, we can talk more about that offline and stuff. But yeah, so 3 of us are technically up for April 30th, which could really kind of change the dynamic of the commission. So we'll see what comes down the pipeline as time goes on. Yeah, so attendance was one thing, and then also start thinking about just what you want 2026 to look like. You know, as you guys know, Randy, Pat, Kevin, and I meet to discuss what the agendas look like. Today's agenda isn't super heavy, but it's also just given the time. It's December, and it's not, you know, it's a very hectic time. So I'm just grateful that you're all even here. But our other meetings obviously are more packed, and so that's something to always consider as well. Any other questions around just general like housekeeping stuff for the commission? No? Okay, good. I already kind of started this meeting by acknowledging the holiday season, but I'll just do it once more. I just want to acknowledge the fact that it is the holiday season. There's several holidays that are celebrated, different denominations and backgrounds for folks that are celebrating. So I'm wishing you all a happy holidays, and on behalf of the commission, my hope is that all residents of the city feel peace and joy during this time of year. I wanted to open up a discussion for what we heard last month. If there were any questions, comments, if for those of you that recall, last month we discussed the heating assistance, and we had a couple of folks that came in and spoke to us. Anything that stood out to you, anything that you wanted to kind of put forward, now's the time as commissioners to discuss that. No? Okay. From my perspective, obviously it was nice to hear that the city has a really good relationship with the Worcester Community Action Council, and so I think that that was really important, and I hope that that just continues to strengthen. It's tough times out there, and as we're preparing for a storm tomorrow, I think about those that may not have heat in this moment, because that is a thing. There are residents in our city that right now that are facing cold. And so that's something that I think about, and something I think is a human right and not a luxury at this point. But that's a personal opinion, but I think one that the commission shares. Okay, so without further ado, I am going to move us along. Pat, did you want to say something?
No, I was just gonna say that we have Evis here.
I
He's
saw
our
that,
first.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So as Pat mentioned, Evis is here. Evis, I don't want to butcher your last name. How do you say it?
It's Terpolari.
Taraparopola. Oh, I see. I can't
Mhm.
even say it. It's a lovely last
Tongue
name.
rolling.
So
Terpolari.
Evis is going to
Okay.
present to us. He is the homeless projects manager for the Department of Health and Human Services. So the topic today that we're going to discuss is the status of winter shelter and possible update on permanent day facility with shelter and services, as well as an update on that. So I'll hand it over to you, and I don't know if you want us to wait with questions till the end, or if you don't mind that we interrupt, let us know and we will happily oblige.
Thanks for having us. Really appreciate everything that you folks are doing. And I think this has become almost like a tradition for us. Every holiday season, we sort of anticipate that invite. So glad to be here today. I want to make sure to acknowledge Richie Gonzalez, who's really not my right hand, I'd say my right arm, because we rely a lot on each other in terms of like making sure that we're covering the entire city with outreach and things like that. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of our efforts. In terms of whether you want to interrupt, feel free to interrupt. I think it's probably better that way, just so that we're covering just about every question there might be. And if we don't have the answers, we certainly get back to the chain of command and get back to you folks. So in terms of our overflow shelter, so this is probably our seventh or eighth year that we're operating our overflow shelters in the city. Historically, they were operated for more or less when temperatures drop below 32 degrees. However, certainly with the increase of homelessness, we found that it was more feasible to operate those shelters throughout, the winter months. So, we've really bounced from place to place, site to site. Churches of religious institutions have really served as those sites for us in terms of like finding places where we can convert into shelters, because based on old laws that allows for this centers to be able to operate. And one thing that's really a mandatory in terms of like operating a shelter, a seasonal shelter, is sprinklers. And so that's why it's always been a challenge for us to be able to find a place that has sprinklers and, and the church or big building that actually has all those bathrooms and, et cetera. It's ADA accessible. So this year, we went to Worcester Community Housing Resources, and that's really one of the projects that we're looking to convert into a 91 bed facility for chronic homeless individuals. But until those fundings come through, we asked the Worcester Community Housing Resource to see if there was any opportunity to use that site there as an overflow shelter. And they certainly were willing to help work with us. And so as of right now, we have about 18 rooms there. And they're non-congregate types of, technically it's a non-congregate type of shelter, which our office has historically advocated for this types of shelters because it gives people more privacy. It's really 18 individual rooms, but it's two people per room. This helps reduce mortality in case of overdose. It also it's not very clustered like a traditional shelter where you're looking at 50 to 100 people plus. And so, we've always advocated for this types of shelters and happy to say that so far the shelter is operating at full capacity. People seem to like it. Our team did a lot of outreach and encampments in the street. We came up with certain lists of people who wanted to get into the shelter. Of course, there's a good amount of people that ended up refusing going in to the shelter regardless, but a good amount of the population that engaged with us throughout the year did end up using those beds. It has actually reduced a lot of the foot traffic back and forth. People are more stable. They feel like they have their own private spot. They have showers, their restrooms are right there. They're being fed. So, it's really a model of care that we advocate for. So as of right now, there's 36 individuals there. And that's obviously in addition to our 25 Queen Street location, which is certainly at capacity plus. So it's over capacity and certainly our the MLK site, which is 64 beds. And then in addition to that, we have 16 beds at Abby's house, 18, I'm sorry, at Abby's house, and then another 20 at Vets Inc. So that really composes our, shelter system in the city. So feel free to interrupt if you have any questions about that. But, our goal has been increasingly to continue to advocate for increased capacity for shelter because we are seeing the results of inflation and costs of living going up, and it seems like every time inflation comes around, it's really those with fixed income, those with no property and etc., or bonds or stocks and things like that pay the price. And so it's really brought us to the point of we're potentially looking at 20% every year, an increase in number of homelessness.
Eva, sorry, I have a question. If
Yes.
you don't mind. I was just curious, oftentimes we'll hear, anecdotes about, more folks, coming into Worcester, unhoused folks that are being either pushed here or dropped off here, or obviously folks also come here because it's a hub for services as well. But I'm just curious, for, doing so much work on the ground, how much of that is much of that narrative is like happening, which I'm assuming it might be, but I would love to just know like what's the, you know what I mean, like the makeup
Sure.
of are people coming here, or why, or for how are they coming, you know what I mean? Just curious.
Yes, so I appreciate that question, and we certainly tread lightly around that, because we certainly don't want our population being
Absolutely,
stigmatized.
yeah.
And I know that, I'm not concerned about this group here or our team, but I just want to explain a little bit of that picture before we go into that type of data. So we're looking at about 60 municipalities in Worcester County, and out of that 60 municipalities, about 5 municipalities represent over 50% of the rental income in the county. So Worcester's at like it's at 53% essentially of the rental market. So the rest is Gardner, Leominster, Fitchburg, and Southbridge. So those are like the towns with the largest rental rental capacity. In terms of like Worcester County itself, 110,000 households are paying more than 30% of their income on rent, meaning actually they're paying more than 50% on rent of their income on rent. So then that's really leaving them with very little to live by. And so oftentimes if there is a crisis, people get sick, med flighted to our local hospitals, etc., they find themselves that they're really out of the home. And so we see those cases a lot. In addition to that, we were just dealing the other day with an individual who was brought into the city twice, regardless of us getting him into a mental health hospital and back into his own local town. It takes a lot of effort for us to be able to connect people with services. So there is a level of truth to that we see a lot of the folks being dropped off in our town. Our data in terms of encampments shows that a little bit, I'd say about 50-50 is really coming from out of towns, and 50 is from around the city of Worcester. In terms of the shelters, we're looking at probably between 25 to 35%, and I'm being very I'm trying to not inflate the numbers and base, because I've heard as far as much as like 50%, but I would guess that somewhere between like 25 to 30% of those residents oftentimes come from other cities and towns. And the fact of the matter is that there is nothing anywhere else. I think I'm a product of this city. I came here as a war refugee, and I found a home, and I built a future for myself here, and my parents, and my wife and child. So I believe in that. We believe in that too, and we certainly want to be welcoming. And I think we need to shouldn't be scared of doing good, because it also comes back to bless us in the end. But
Evis, can I ask a quick question? Sure. Sorry for interrupting. I want to build off of what you just said. So
Sure.
Some of these numbers are very surprising to me about how many of the folks do come from outside of the city, and it's because we are a bit of a hub. From the top of your head, do you know if the surrounding towns and municipalities that do, I don't want to say feed into the system, but do have a small role in this, have any of them offered assistance in any way, or has this become a Worcester, like Worcester holds all the cards here in the sense of we are footing the full bill?
So we've had in the recent couple months, maybe, I would say couple months, we've initiated discussions with the town of Millbury, Auburn, um, um, Leicester, and Shrewsbury. So, we're, again, those preliminary discussions, we don't have anything in plan, but we're really going through all the like support services, what are folks seeing in their communities. We're trying to develop a training platform for how to run and operate shelters. We're also looking at developing a platform of how to actually, look into like tapping into this funding to operate and to locate sites, because there's a lot involved in that. A lot of the dollars come through the state. A lot of people think that the city, pays a lot of those bills, but actually the state pays a lot of those dollars. And so to your question, we're seeing some involvement in terms of like willingness to learn the process and to understand, but so far we haven't seen any commitment, which, that's really our goal, end goal, to see if our neighboring towns will be willing to work in terms of, and it doesn't have to be a 50 to 100 bed capacity. We have specific shelters that we're looking for. For instance, for the first time ever in our history, we're seeing more women come into shelter than ever before. So it used to be like 1/3 of the population. Now it's almost at 50-50. So that's great news, because, otherwise this women would be like, whether it's like an encampment or like with the abusers or, different situations. And of course, that's a vulnerable population that we want to make sure that we have an eye on. And so, yes, so that's some of the efforts in terms of other cities and towns. But yes, we do have, we do have a lot of great services in the city. So that's really to be said.
Thank you. I just think it's, I wanted to ask, I think it's important to the public, and all of us here, have an understanding of like, I think sometimes this certain narratives are out there that might kind of, worry neighbors and folks about, or about like really digging into this issue. But I think it's great to have an understanding of like a clearer picture of what the reality is. So I appreciate the information.
Sure thing. Sure. And we can talk a little bit about our team and how we're tackling it on our end. So we have a team of outreach workers that goes out every week. Actually almost every day, but at least twice a week, we partner with other support service providers. We have the Department of Veterans Affairs, we have Open Sky and SMOC, and
nurse from DPH.
We have now a nurse from DPH to be able to do some wound care. And so we're involved in a lot of the street outreach in the homeless encampments. In addition to that, we're involved in our drug court, recovery court. So what are those numbers looking like in terms of referrals there?
So we started 1.5 years. That's kind of like a little different from the drug court. The drug court, they only pick 15 people through the whole year. This was something that we started with Josh People. They moved to the Worcester Court now from Dudley. And it's something that is available to every person that go to the arrangement room. Where a person get arrested, the bail is set, and lawyer is assigned. So if it's any signs that the crime is related to active addiction, we have a recovery coach there Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. The lawyers are already been trained and notified that this service is there. In any case that they see as a candidate to offer for treatment instead of jail, we got a recovery coach that will talk to the lawyer, secure a bed. We've been doing partnership with Spectrum, to Care, Washburn, DDoS, CHL. So most of these facilities of treatment already know that we have that during that time, and they've been saving bed and doing, even the extra mile to help these people. And I dare to say that we got over 100 people placing treatment since we started. A lot of successful stories that they already passed more than 6 months, finished treatment. So in most of these cases, there's no like higher charges, like probably shoplifting, trespassing, minimum possession, things like that. So when the judge see that the person is seeking treatment and finishing treatment, a lot of these cases even get dismissed because the whole idea is to target the root, which a lot of these cases is related to the substance use disorder. So that has been something that's very active, and also working with Everyday Miracle, different agencies also to provide the recovery coach and partner with us to make this successful.
So in addition to that, we have some great resources here in the city, like the Road to Care van, which really is an effort that came through this office, obviously operated through by UMass, the methadone van or the Road to Recovery van. Those are really great resources because those are docs that are supplying, providing medicine to folks that are unhoused, and they're providing those primary care services. Whether it's wound care or MAT, Suboxone, methadone, those are really the tools that have really helped curb some of the opioid crisis, results of the opioid crisis, overdoses in the city. In addition to that, we're involved in a lot of IDs and birth certificates. We get probably 2 to 4 individuals per week, mass IDs, and that really starts initiating whether it's employment or housing searches and things like that. We've had a great success in terms of being able to present more people into the COC this year than ever before, because we've had such good ability to follow people thoroughly for over a year. And so you might not know this, but in terms of folks that are eligible for housing vouchers, the government says that you have to be continually homeless for 1 year or more, 12 consecutive months of homelessness, or 4 episodes of homelessness in the last 3 years, totaling 12 months plus, along with a disability. So that's a whole mouthful of words there, and it's it certainly doesn't make our job easier to when we encounter people that are coming from out of town trying to explain this is just like a word puzzle. So just the fact that a person's homeless, but now you got to tell them you're not homeless long enough because per government requirements, etc. So that's always a difficult thing to explain, what chronic homelessness is. But we really focus on what we can do versus what we can't do. Otherwise, we'd be discouraged fairly quick. So what we can do right there and then is treatment, right? IDs, sober housing. We can get applications updated through the housing authority. If there was a denial, we can try to reverse that by appeals, and whether it's employment and some people just need peer support. They have no family, so we service those people too.
Yeah, I would like to add on that. So, the title for a position is more of an outreach worker than a case manager, But in the last year, we started taking the role of case management on top of all the outreach, presenting people, because there were people that were being out there for more than 3 years and they haven't been presented to the COC. They had the qualifications, they had more than 12 months, but I think with the value of so many, the numbers of homeless and the numbers of case managers, right? In a lot of these agencies, sometimes they got 160 people and it's only 2 or 3 case managers to deal with that. So we were able to start. I think we got over 16 people already presented, right? I think 8 of them already housed. And another important factor of that's part of our outreach. Yes, we may not have a solution at the time, but at least we engaging people in the process, like collecting data, because it had to be documented data. So every week we go, we have a list of all the encampments around the city, And we may not have the solutions, but at least twice a month, we check by that spot, make sure that the person, right, is well, offer treatment, right? Offer shelter. A lot of them refuse it for many different reasons, right? But still, we be able to document it until we have 12 months to be able to. put that person
Narcan
forward.
medications, we've really, been there in perfect timing for a lot of folks that have had cardiac
Yes.
arrests
Overdose.
and due to overdoses, so we have had to be there. It's just a peak of time, so it's always great to be involved and to be engaged and folks know that we might not have all the solutions right in our fingertips, but they see how hard we're trying, and that really goes far along for a lot of folks. So,
I see Commissioner Anahe with her hand up.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for speaking with us today. I was curious to learn about your partnership within the Massachusetts court system, specifically the recovery court. Could you speak a little bit more about that?
Yes, so, prior when, Josh People was doing the drug court, Dolby, I used to go myself and speak, to the participants there. He was moved to Worcester Court last year.
Mhm.
So, we meet with Mary Castell, myself and him, and with the idea that how do we be able to offer, recovery services to more people, because the mental health court and the drug court is only quantity for 15 people, and those people have to be a whole year in that process. So with this, like we call it like a diversion program at the court is offered to every person they go through the court system. So every person they get arrested got that access. The lawyers already know that if they even have a person that is already been incarcerated but have a problem with addiction, they reach out to us so we can secure a bed in CSS, DSS, or if they've got a client that they're trying to get a probation to go into residential treatment, we come in and work with them to secure a bed and try to, rather than go to jail, place these people in treatment.
And
Thank you.
and it's been a success story for us because they even the judges and the folks that work there, they're instantly, they know that our team sits in a certain spot, and so they know to look for us. So between 11 to 1 o'clock, one of our team members there. So whether it's someone that's struggling or they could use our help, we'd certainly get involved. And I think it just, a lot of our success really is dependent on our personal contacts, connections, relationships with a lot of partners. They see that we're amongst, perhaps, the only in a few boots on the ground that is really covering the entire city and providing all services. And so they know to save beds for us. And so we have a really high success in terms of finding detox beds, not just in the city, but throughout, the Worcester County region.
It's been, the team and the relationships have been built to the point that these treatment facilities every morning, they send us a list of how many beds they have. Because they know where we are, they are doing average every day of the week. We're going in the court and trying to transition, and also probation department too. A lot of them, they have the interest to help, but they don't know the system and the network over here, how to work with that process. So a lot of time probation officers, they haven't even a little struggle, one of the rating violate that person again that, trying to jail like it was prior years. They trying to find solution and deal with the root of the problem. And it's not something like the drug court, they had to, it's a lot of positions that have to be paid in there, clinicians, doctors to be part of that. This is just recovery coach peer support that, working with another person struggling with it, helping them walk through it.
It reduces cost,
Yeah.
and it's not burdensome to taxpayers, and it's also form of harm reduction to the individual too, and then to the systems too. I know that, so, enforcement doesn't want sometimes to deal with arresting, unhoused people for low stuff, but at least there's the system on the other side that can help that person bring to the next step. And also there's certainly a lot of family members who reach out to us for 35s. Those are, mandatory commitments by family members. So we certainly help coach them, support them, and certainly help with that process as well. So our goal is certainly advocacy for housing, more and more housing, because ultimately, that's the only way you
That's a platform.
solve homelessness. And so our goal is, hopefully we'll see how that plays out with a new administration and whether, Massachusetts will play by the rules or not. And that's really not really my cup of tea, but we're certainly hoping that, we will get to that, 100+ units of housing that we had projected to build back, 10, almost 7 years ago. As of right now, we're at something like 58 units built so far. So we're certainly hoping for Worcester Community Housing Resources, the hotel, which is now temporary shelter, that will be another 90 units. The 20 beds at the MLK, that's an additional 20. Tiny Village for folks with DMH, Stafford Street, so that would be another potentially 20 beds. So in addition to that, we're looking at little lots of land that the city has in terms of maybe you put small efficiency units. We're looking at 4 tiny homes for seniors. So, we're certainly, there's a lot of desire and willingness. It's just we're sometimes limited by the laws that were put in place many years ago, and NIMBYism and funding, and there's just so many layers to that, and folks sometimes think why not more is being done, and they don't understand the challenges that oftentimes developers face.
I was just curious, how has it been going so far? I know the CMHA shelter on Oriole Drive is quite new. I was just curious, or it's just opened, what, a week or two ago, or?
Thursday, they started, getting people in. We were able, we were part of creating the list of the people that were, our own house. So we were able to transport them to prevent, the self-presentation and the walking back and forth. So by Friday, I knew by Friday, 6 o'clock, I finished on Friday, the whole 36 beds were full on Friday.
And explain how happy folks.
Oh, and so myself, I'm a person in a long-term recovery and a person that experienced homeless in the city when I came into for many years. So I've been 15 years sober and now doing this amazing work. I never experienced a model, something of shelter like that. Person is 2 people per room. They have their own bathroom with shower in that room. They have a little fridge. They have a microwave. So these people were so overwhelmed, so happy. A lot of them, they haven't been even, some of them we highlight, according to the conversation that was already planned, we highlight the people that were in Lincoln Street, the people that the homeless, the transit that area. They even in the past years when the overflows were open down in downtown area, they didn't came down here because that's the area where they're frequent, right? So we highlight those people as a priority, and I think we have almost all of them, -2 that deny this. And these people are very happy. They got their own room for more privacy. It's not like everybody together. We put in each other's frustration. They can, they can decrease and go to the room if the heat go up. And it's even better for the staff too. It's more calm, very clean, more manageable, way more manageable.
Great.
It reduces a lot of the issues, and with the road to caravan, bringing MAT right there, it's really a beam of light and hope to be able to change, make that that change. And sometimes folks just need a hand up, just to get out of that that routine and that they're stuck in sometimes. And you'd be amazed to see like some of the success stories that we see, which is like, how is it possible? And that's how it happens. It's just one miracle at a time. So
It's a needed,
Right.
in my own experience, it's needed a foundation, because how do you get on your feet if you don't have where to place them? You know, and when you have a place that you can sleep, you can rest, and then you have, the wraparound services with that, then you can build your life up from there. You see it.
So how many people did you say were in there? And can you explain a little bit about, that was supposed to become a very big facility and they planned it for a long time. And then I heard it wasn't going to open at all. And then I heard it's open tomorrow. And how many people, I didn't quite catch the number. What's the genesis of that whole project and how many people are there now, and will it grow or not grow?
So in terms of whether it will grow, no, it's not going to grow, unfortunately. And probably neighborhood will say fortunately for that side too. But the story is that at the beginning of fall, towards the end of summer, we as a city, like interdepartmentally, everyone is looking for sites. And because it takes so long to find a right site due to zoning, due to like sprinkler system and, capacity, and also funding is a major contributor, but, we've somehow figured out that funding every year. And so we were looking throughout the entire city, and because, we couldn't locate anything else, we kind of, in terms of like, that was an option that, that became available kind of like in the last minute, success story kind of. So, we reached out to Worcester Community Housing Resources, and they were certainly willing to do that. It required some pre-work before, we could set everything up in there, because, you have to have fire department pass an inspection, and every inspector has to go there and make sure it's thoroughly habitable, because the building had been closed for so long. Other than, training, I think police did some training there in the past. So the genesis is that used to be a hotel. It was purchased by Worcester Community Housing Resources to be converted into a 91-bed facility for the chronic homeless individuals. So the goal is to convert that half into senior housing and half into, non-senior housing, again, for the chronic homeless. Unfortunately, funding has been really slow to keep up with the project. So because it requires so much funding, and we kind of like that building is still vacant. So that's why sort of gears started spinning, and we proposed that, kind of as an option, of course. And we had to certainly go through the neighborhood groups and to discuss with them about like potential opening. Then graciously they gave us the blessing. There's certainly a resistance and a lot of this efforts, but they were very gracious in terms of like, we're not going to be like the other neighborhoods. So they did that, and we're grateful to them, because, and we're also proven to them, to the neighbors, that we can make this platform work, right? The travel, has been reduced drastically. The panhandling maybe a little less, but the shopping carts, the streets are a little more clean, and our outreach departments are there constantly, and the people are more stabilized. They're actually staying in their rooms, and they're getting stable. They're not going out every day to sort of find, the resources to feed the addiction. Because we're bringing the road to caravan, the methadone maintenance is there, clinics are there. So there's really a lot of emphasis placed in treatment and maintaining that. So I'm not sure if I answered the questions correctly, but yes, the goal is that that project ultimately becomes a permanent residency for some of the previous homeless individuals.
Thank you. You did. I just want to say, what's the capacity and are you at capacity? What's that number now?
At
36.
36 is capacity right now there, yes. So it's 18 rooms, 2 people per room. So that makes it, turns it into 36, yes.
Thank you.
And so one more thing that like I think we're looking is so we need to touch base a little bit about the day resource center and then in terms of shelter expenditure. So one idea that we have proposed also, and SMOC's been great in terms of like willingness to work with us and some of the proposals we've made. Also, the staff has been improved over the last several years. They're willing to work with us, and it's because at the end of the day, they are in a private entity. So, one proposal that we had is that we convert the second floor of the shelter into shelter, because as of right now, is single room occupancies, and I think there's something like maybe 20 rooms upstairs, not quite sure, but that essentially could create some more potential, maybe 15 rooms, but that could create some potential for some single occupancy type of shelter, so non-congregate type of shelter like the hotel is. So that could potentially house an additional 30 beds. So that would essentially reduce the population in our main shelter. And this will give us a nice flow in terms of like having the overflow of that. And then the goal is really for us to find a permanent location for our overflow so that we're not every year it's getting burdensome to go in and looking and asking residents and businesses and etc. for a new site. So our goal is to find, God willing, by next year, a new permanent site where that will be permanent. And so hopefully that will satisfy our needs in terms of shelter. Of course, the way we're seeing the influx of, of people becoming homeless and, the data shows that homelessness is on the rise. If other communities and towns certainly don't pitch in to contribute to the factor, then we're certainly going to continue seeing that that number continue to rise here in the city as well. So.
How's it coming with developing the day center? And on that second floor, would there be any room for non-congregant people to live as well?
So the goal of that project is to be complete by November of next year. So there's been a lot of proposals in terms of like creating some capacity for shelter there and the day resource on the first floor. Our goal is really to create a shelter space separate to that site, because we don't want to overwhelm really like what's going on there. I think it's really not up to me or Richie in terms of how that project will be operated, but there's certainly been a lot of discussions about whether we create some permanent housing beds there, and then create some permanent shelter beds elsewhere, so that there is a day resource center where people can have a one-point entry for all services and then be dispersed to different types of shelters. We certainly don't believe in having one big shelter, with overcrowdedness. So it's better off having like smaller, tight-knit shelters and operated, a little more efficiently. I feel that like the Oriole Street Drive, like that is really a model shelter that we advocate for, versus crowded spaces.
And how
Thank
many
you.
people can stay at the MLK Center?
It's, as of right now, it's 64
For females.
for females. So we made the decision to keep 25 Queen Street separate from for male, and then have the females population into the MLK shelter. So unfortunately, we continue to see women that go there, which is fortunately for us, because we're seeing that, but we also are seeing the fact that we're also need more beds for the female population. So that and majority of the females there, they're couples. So that's really been our goal, to have the second floor of that building into a couples shelter. So
For the 25.
of the
25.
25 queens. So, if there's women that are going there, they don't want to be separate from their partners. Our goal is to have only men there, but because SMOC does not turn away anyone, then they certainly have welcomed couples there as well. And that will create some capacity eventually on the second floor to be able to house some people on the second floor. So hopefully, if things work out perfect in a perfect world, the first floor will be all male, second floor couples, MLK female, and then we potentially have another site that's more permanent shelter. So in addition to Abby's house and that's it as well.
Question for you really quick. How closely do you work with the hospitals in terms of, doing hospital ministry? At times I could walk through the ER and I see a number of unhoused people just staying there, and I've heard we've talked a lot about the other towns involved in their contributions or lack thereof. And, one of the fears I have is the stress on the healthcare system, and there's a lot of great work you're talking about with the mobile stations being able to go to the facilities directly to give those resources to individuals who certainly need them. And I guess this is a greater frustration I have in terms of when we look at other towns and politicians and whatnot, and trying to bring maybe more voices to the table to say, hey, listen, this is affecting everyone. Healthcare system is being affected by this, and so resources are being strained all along there. And we are a hub in so many ways for hospitals as well. And it is sad to see at times the stress that I could say from the perspective of UMass, what I see there in terms of how ERs are being utilized and whatnot. And then at the same time, you have, it's a whole other conversation, downtown, another hospital that where there's so many empty beds and whatnot because of the way things are there. But so I think, my concern is, again, is there a lot of dialogue going on with you in the healthcare system, with you in the hospitals there, and how can we perhaps be a bridge for that as well?
So we had a meeting last week with chief, one of the chief docs over at St. Vincent's Hospital. And it was a very productive meeting because they certainly see the population, especially being downtown, the location, the hospital being so close to downtown. They certainly see a large number of the in-house folks. And we found that conversation to go fairly well. And Dr. Dornabid, great guy. He expressed that he wanted to partner with us in terms of being able to outreach to folks that are being discharged there, or vice versa, in case there was someone that they were looking for and our team is on the ground. They certainly have a whole team of folks that are looking at homelessness and as a whole different, perspective in terms of how they reach out and how they help those folks after their discharge. So the reality is that they are the only ones that, we've certainly discussed in the past several years. Nothing really concrete with concrete plans, but UMass docs and things like that. But St. Vincent's really was the one, engagement we have recently in terms of how we help those folks that are going there and how do we help them after discharge. And, I think we had the first case was it last week or this week, where we reached out to the doc.
Yes.
We found a woman with no shoes, middle of the snow. She was discharged there and, against medical advice. And, they were certainly very welcoming and willing to take her back. And just like that, I think coordination of that care really mattered. Ultimately, the woman refused to go there, but we managed to get her a bed at the shelter. And unfortunately, the psychosis, she was dealing with psychosis at the time. So at the time when we reached out to CIT, Crisis Intervention Unit for Worcester PD, they now have a clinician that's staffed with them 20 at least 3 shifts a day. And so they were able to go over the shelter to try to engage. So there's been some engagement in terms of our local hospital here, but we certainly think that conversation could go a little better. But oftentimes what we hear from our shelter staff is that folks are oftentimes dropped off at their doorstep, unable to meet ADA, needs like being able to shower and change on their own wheelchair, so the shelter doesn't have that, the personnel to be able to take care of them. So people have to have their own, be able to access their own, showers and things like that. So that creates an issue with some of the back and forth and with the hospitals. A few years ago, Mass Health developed some type of a complying, grievance procedure that could be filled online. So, and I'm pretty aware that the shelter staff uses that frequently to put some pressure on the states in terms of being able to connect people with the right resources, not just discharging them at a shelter that it's already overcrowded and doesn't have the, it's probably not really beneficial to some of the folks, especially if you're immunocompromised and you need more space to be able to get around. So yes, so we see those cases and it's really a pull and tug kind of battle.
So, I just kind of given the conversation that we've had, there's a motion I'd like to put forward, and could just kind of hear from commissioners on their thoughts and stuff. So let me read out what I have, and then, if the premise of it makes sense, then we vote that, and then Pat, Kevin, and I can flush out the wording. But let me just kind of say what I have here. So I think we should formally recognize that housing insecurity and access to shelter is a human rights issue. And then we should request that the city manager's office pursue regional collaboration agreements with surrounding towns and municipalities to ensure equitable responsibility for homelessness services. I think that's something that I think as a commission we could do. I think that oftentimes this conversation is politicized, and it's politicized for all the wrong reasons. I believe that this is a human rights issue. I'm open to conversation with other commissioners But I'd like to put forward that motion. And if someone would like to second that, I would welcome it. And then we can open it up for discussion.
I will second that.
Thank you. So let's open that up for discussion because I don't want us to just vote on it without a discussion around it. Do any commissioners feel strongly about what I just said, whether it be positive or negative? I'd love to kind of hear some input from folks before we vote on it.
To the chair, I agree with you 100%. I'm listening to Elvis give his presentation, and I'm looking in my mind calculating the ratio of homeless in population that's in Worcester to the available beds. It seems like it's so disproportional to the reality of my mathematical mind. I just can't wrap my head around it. You know, it's just like it's just, I mean, you're doing the best you can. I really appreciate what you're doing, but it's almost like, you know, putting a Band-Aid on the cancer. So I concur 100% with the motion going forth.
Thank you. Anyone else before I move forward with requesting a vote? Okay.
I think I would just say, you know, obviously it's a very complex issue at times, right? You know, and I think, as we know, it's a very polarizing issue. And I say that now, like literally looking out my window right now at 3 individuals in a storefront laying on the ground. Literally right now looking at that, you know. I've gone over, you know, we've tried to provide resources during the day. They head out, and then every night they're back right there, you know. So it's a hard issue, I think, for a lot of people. And I think, you know, we hear about individuals who are perhaps feeling the stress. I think there are communities that are feeling the stress in a variety of different ways. You know, and I support this 100%. I'm so grateful to see the good works that are taking place by so many organizations and within the city to try to help alleviate something that seems fixing at times there. But I think we need to fight as hard as we possibly can as a commission to ensure everyone as an individual does feel they are being treated with dignity and respect.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Pat, I'm going to call for a roll call, please.
Very good. Thank you, Randy. So we have a motion, I'm sorry, Guillermo. We have a motion made by Guillermo regarding terminology to put forth to the city manager declaring housing insecurity and access a human right issue, and then asking the city manager to start to work on agreements with neighboring communities to contribute to the collaboration to help the unhoused that are coming into our city. It was seconded by Carrie Witherell. I'm going to take a roll call vote, please. Guillermo Creamer Jr., Chair.
Aye.
Randy Feldman, Vice Chair.
Aye.
Carrie Witherell, Clerk.
Aye.
Reverend John Slavinskis, Member.
Aye.
Dr. Bernard Reese, Member.
Aye.
Rob Bellotta, Member.
Aye.
Anahit Marudian, Member.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, everyone. I think it's important that that was unanimous, so I really appreciate that. And the work that you two are doing, I mean, it's just, it obviously it goes without saying, it's so critical and oftentimes I'm sure feels thankless. Not just by individuals, right? I think more so by the resources that you have or lack of. And so I think that, you know, especially during the winter months where it's cold and we feel it within our bones and we're temporarily outside, it really does strike a different chord. So I'm so grateful to the work that you are both doing. I'm grateful to the work that everyone who's a part of the system is doing. It takes a village. There are so many people, be it the shelter staff or those that are working to really help the folks with the next chapter of their life. Like, it is not just one person, right? It is a monster of a team. And so, especially during the holidays, I'm nothing but grateful for the work that you are all doing. But I hope that this motion is a small sign of the support that is necessary. I think that Worcester is very much a leader, and I think I'm not trying to make this a political game. What I'm trying to do here is that the reality is that Worcester can't carry this weight on its own, right? And so I think that this type of issue, it really involves collaboration amongst those who surround us. We shouldn't just be a drop off. We should be the leader in this, but very much still have the support from those around us. So I thank you completely. And I know that all the other commissioners here are grateful. Thanks again.
Thank you. Appreciate you folks. And so tonight is we remember our homeless, because it's also the longest night vigil tonight. That technically would have been the 20 yesterday, but because it didn't allow us. So, but tonight is the night that we all got together to commemorate those who lost their lives this year and they were homeless. Usually that falls on the 21st of December, which is the longest night, and that's why we call it the longest night. So please have them in your thoughts and prayers, families, and we thank you for recognizing our work, because ultimately, oftentimes it feels like going against the current. But again, we try to focus on what we can do that day, not what we can't do. So thank you again. Appreciate you folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joe. It's eye-opening and a lot of great information here every year that we hear from you personally. I think it's like, I'm always like very interested to learn about, like, and I think it's great too for more residents to learn about the work too, because it is a frustrating thing, and it definitely understandable frustrating for neighborhoods and residents. But I think like learning like that the what's happening at Oriole Drive, that you're already seeing like really good, well, like some of those wraparound services that ultimately pulls people out of homelessness, I think is really great to learn about. But I know in Worcester, it's definitely a real challenge, and like you were still like as a like working in the village to figure it out, but acknowledging that it is a challenge for Worcester residents for sure.
For sure. Thanks again.
Can I just ask
Appreciate
one
you
question too? I know I don't want to, I just had one quick question. Do you have any close working relationships with colleges, in terms of, do colleges offer funding or anything to assist the good works that you're doing? Again, we have a lot of those tax issues that come up with colleges and universities at times there. And I think it's very refreshing to see so many of our young people that come to the city who are engaging in the work,
Yes.
Recognize the dignity, but I didn't know if there was any formalized relationships that you had with any of the universities.
Sure. So that's an excellent question. So one of our success stories is our LARC program through Clark University. And that is really like folks that are coming out of incarceration, or they want to be involved, go back to school. And so one of our recovery coaches here is actually a LARC student. And he's really one of our best guys here. He's doing so well, and so he started as an intern, and now he's a part-time person for us. So with the other option, we're potentially looking at the same thing for with the Department of our VA here, and aid within HHS. Also, we receive a lot of interns from College of Holy Cross, and they're really great students. We have nothing but a lot of love and respect for those folks, and they've helped a lot in terms of like data entry and data analysis and things like that, because we have to do a lot of that in addition to our street outreach and engagements. There's a lot of council reports and education around homelessness that goes on in the office consistently. So they've been the WPI has been a great success story. They just finished designing a facility, an old, I guess that used to be a school on 781 Grove Street. That used to be a school. So one of their proposals was that the students take the project and convert that into senior housing. So what does a modern day senior housing look like with all the wraparound services, with, doc students that are staffing the facility 24/7? How does that young crowd with a new crowd mix in, and so that seniors don't feel forgotten? And the bridge, some of the buildings, of course, there's a lot of dollars that, wasn't anticipated in the project, but just to think, to have students think around homelessness as a different, looking at it as different scope, because it's really, we're hoping that our future generations will have at least a better grasp on this than us. We've proposed, in our support service working group, we have several working groups in place now that are report to the city manager, that perhaps we need to tap into some of the internships that programs like of social work are doing, like Holy Cross and Anna Maria College, Worcester State University. So how do we tap into some of those internships to be able to help our population with case management and things like that? We haven't really gotten that much ground, but it's certainly one of those ideas that we're exploring. And it's very important to us because that would reduce the caseload per case manager. And so now case managers will actually, for a change, be able to do case management, not just crisis intervention and, pumping paperwork. In terms of like another dialogue we're having, second week of January is meeting with DMH to find out what part of that population that's accessing shelter might have some DMH case management in place, whether out of city, inside the city. Oftentimes we don't see those case managers as boots on the ground or, in the shelter. So we're trying to figure out how we work together with them to be able to find out who those folks are, to be able to provide that case management so we're not duplicating services. And it gives us a little bit of ability to breathe and be able to do some more quality work versus quantity work. I tell our team all the time, it's like, let's look for quantity, because it's really like when it comes to the lives of people, you certainly don't want to look at that as a numbers game. That's more of a helping one person at a time. And so if we've saved one life today, that's a miracle. Just 4 weeks ago, within a week, we housed 3 people, and that was a miracle. That was, something. So those miracles happen with us, our team, all the time. Maybe next time we're around, we'd love to share some of our data with you folks in terms of how many people access treatment. And I think just last year alone, I think we had a report done in June of 2024. I think it was like
1,500 encounters.
1,500 encounters and over 800 people into treatment, something like that. I can't remember it, but there's a lot of good data, and that we'd love to share with you folks. For the longest time, we just kept plugging along, and not a whole lot of people were wanting to know. So, but certainly I think because homelessness is at the forefront of everything nowadays, we're certainly getting to share a lot of our data. So.
Thank you. All right. Thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it. I know that this work isn't easy, so thanks again for everything that you all do.
And thank you again for all you folks for doing this. I know it's also volunteer, so it goes without saying. And one hand helps another. So appreciate your effort to help our team in that process to at least bring some awareness. Thank
Yeah,
you.
of course. Of course. Thank you.
Take care, folks.
Have a good night. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right, guys. I thank you so much. A lot of great questions from you all. I'm gonna move us along. Our Chief Equity Officer is up. I had asked the Chief Equity Officer to put together kind of a report on how his first year went, any projects or plans, accomplishments he wanted to shed light on. So this is his opportunity to do that. I'm sure that he'll be doing this presentation a couple of times, not just to us. But Kevin, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, thank you, Guillermo. And thank you everyone for having me. So I just put together a few slides of basically what the Executive Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion has been working on and what the first year looked like under my tenure. But before I start, I think it's good for me to acknowledge just some of the history around trying to retain a Chief Equity Officer within a position. I do want to acknowledge those that came before me and some of the work that they put down and laid down as a foundation that I was able to either pick up or expand or utilize that for institutional knowledge. Outside of the city, I've been doing Chief Equity Officer's role for a while now, and it is very common that most organizations or institutions that you walk into, you're only afforded like one staff person. I think what was appealing for me in this role, the city manager had put forth the creation of how to revamp the office, and what I believe what was assigned that was signed by the city councilors was to take investigations out of HR and put it with DEI. From HHS, we took human rights and accessibility, which Pat oversees, and put it in DEI. And then from also another area from HR is training and professional development. So I think with that structure, for me, I'm a fan of it. Like I said, when you look at trends, most of the times Chief Equity Officers only have one staff assistant, but expected to fix everything in the kitchen sink. So I just try to acknowledge like some of the history around that and just the tenure of Chief Equity Officers. And so I've been real fortunate at least having the resources to do some of this work, including working with some of our boards and commission. All right, I'm going to share my screen. Oh, I don't think I can see y'all anymore, but can you say something if you can see the screen?
We can see the screen and we can hear you.
Got it.
Awesome. If you have questions, you might just have to shout because I can no longer see y'all. So like what's new under my first year? It's been a good reflection period for me and how far we've come. There's obviously been challenges, but there's also been a lot of successes. The work itself, when you talk about DEI in a climate that's politically charged and attacked, for me, it's not gonna always be easy. But you try to remember what the purpose is why you're doing this work. So for my agenda, I'll cover all three divisions and the work that they're doing, some of the success that they have, what they've been able to implement, and what they've been tasked with, and then I'll cover some of my projects that I'm looking forward to in 2026. So when I first came, one of my first days that I did is looked at goals that I wanted for the office separately, things that I looked into. So I think the four goals that I quickly wanted to establish was fostering a strong foundation within the Executive Office of DEI. So what that means is for this office to be successful, I needed to make sure that my staff had the resources, ensuring that I'm advocating whatever they need that I can provide for them to be able to do the job, and just creating a strong foundation. A strong team will help your office grow. Number two, guided by a framework for achieving DEI in the city government. This is going to be the next page, but that's basically our DEI plan for the city in terms of how we achieve it. So our office took on how to roll out that framework, which we'll go through It's on the city's website as well too. Number three, I've always been a fan of boards and commissions. In my graduate studies, I've studied affinity groups and employee resource groups. For me, I think they serve the same way, specifically the ones that are related to identity. So for me, it was important that I worked closely with the boards, and even on times that were challenging, try to find ways where we can meet a middle ground and have a good relationship. And then four, I had my own personal goals as the chief equity officer. So this was the framework that I was referring to, basically our DEI plan. There is, I believe, 6 goals. And so first one is to accelerate representation within the city workforce and leadership. What does that look like to provide representation within the workforce, but also most importantly on the leadership level? Increase access to opportunities through an equitable hiring process. For those that are following politics, that's something that Pat and I and HR are working on, right? There's a lot of executive orders that are trying to push the hiring process into a merit base, and where you don't really look at equity in certain lenses through historical context. So we're trying to find ways how to navigate through that. 3, provide DEI trainings and professional development opportunities, which is under our division for professional development. 4, foster an environment where people with disabilities are included, empowered, and have access to support. This is a project under Pat where she has been able to revamp our ADA process, working with HR. 5, advance equal pay for the equal work. That's something that I'm working on with our assistant city manager on, and looking at some of the pay equity gaps. And then lastly, to ensure diverse vendors have equal opportunity to conduct business with the city. So that's basically making sure their mom and pop shops have an opportunity to do business with the city. So that's working with economic development and budget on ensuring what barriers might be in the way when we go through like a bidding process. So I talked a little bit about the foundation and how the office came together. So I have myself at the top. What I've been really tasked with is a few areas. So 1, to serve as a senior advisor when it comes to equity for the city manager. 2, to work with all of our department heads, ensuring that we can push equity through their operations. So that might look like they have policies that they want to run by us, programs that they're trying to push out. It might just be consulting on how to approach something, but it's all through an equity lens. So highlighted in the light blues are the different divisions. So we can start with Pat's area for human rights and accessibility. So you have Pat, who's the director. We have an accessibility coordinator that really focuses on accessibility programs. And then lastly, right now we're currently in the process of hiring a human rights and accessibility program coordinator. Under investigations, a core function of our office, really tasked with anytime there's a complaint or a violation and a municipal employees involved, our investigation teams conduct that investigation. So our lead investigation is Victor Perez. Then we have our investigation specialist, Joe. And I'm happy to also announce that we just hired last week a civil rights investigator. And lastly, our training and professional development division. This is one division that I'm actively working on and trying to grow. So for this budget cycle coming in, it's to start to staff this area as well. I think as a city where we can be doing better is providing more professional development opportunities in-house for our employees. Sometimes we're so busy with having our head down in the computer, we don't take time to professionally push our careers or get the training you need to better inform your work. All right, just to break it down on what projects and success that we've had. So starting with the investigation division. So when I came in, I was very big on data, on making sure that when we're making decisions, we're making consequences, we're looking at that, we want to make sure that we have data to inform us. So in our investigation process, my team does investigation and does the fact finding and bumps it up to me, and I review that. and then I make a determination on what that discipline looks like. There's a few things that I use to make that discipline. One, obviously, looking at the employee's history, but also in terms of the violation that has occurred, seeing what similar disciplines have been handed out, and am I being equitable in that? So that was important to me. So we created a database based on discipline. Two is looking at demographics. This helps me to have conversations with department heads, right? So let's just say within a month, we had 6 or 4 cases, and I'm recognizing either a pattern with a certain demographic group that I have to highlight, or it's within a certain department. Now I can have that data to back me up when I talk to those department heads on things or plans that we need to put in place to ensure there's not a negative impact depending on that demographics. So those are 2 areas that we've implemented in our investigation division. When I look at policies, these are currently the policies under our team. So if any of these are violated, that's when we get called. Within my arrival, we were able to expand to bullying, workplace violence, and we're currently working on a slur policy. Prior to that, we had our protected class harassment policy, which is the PC, and sexual harassment. Since then, we've been able to provide more policies to ensure not only the safety, but morale as well, too, of our workforce. So anytime one of these are violated, that's when an investigation is conducted. Okay, so just our procedures, something that we've provided as well too is our hotline. So many of you are aware what that is. As you know, following after the DOJ report, we wanted another avenue to, one, that our residents can trust, two, that they can turn to if there was an issue with the police department, specifically physical force that involved bias or sexual harassment. We would be called in to lead that investigation and look into it. Right. And then we have our regular municipal investigation. So that's any municipal employee internally. We would lead the investigation on that. I can say with the hotline, it has been a success. A lot of folks have, whether it falls under us or not, it's the fact that we have a resource that folks can use and talk to us. Right. For me, it's important that we build trust within the community and have a space for that. And then lastly, what our investigation teams do is a lot of legal training. So you have your annual sexual harassment policies. They've also engaged in a new employee orientation. They've by training on the ADA procedures, sexual harassment, protected class. And these are things that we try to inform our employees so when they don't find themselves in violation and so that they're aware what some of the policies are. So investigation have done quite a bit. I'm really proud of this division and some of the work that we've been able to expand and moving efficiently in. Moving over to Pat's area for human rights and accessibility, there's quite a good successes we've had. I think one thing that I'm really proud that Pat has been able to do, as I said in our DEI plan, ensuring that folks with disabilities feel empowered, heard, and valued. So one area that we look to revamp is our accommodation process. Prior to that, we've had one, but we wanted to make it more friendly user and actually have ADA officers, which Pat serves as one, and we have a business partner within HR as well too. This accommodation process, it's a friendly user, and how it works is we're trying to promote that if you need accommodation, work with our division to assist you in that process. Two, so Pat oversees our language line. What she's been also able to do is extend our language line to actually public safety as well. So last year when we did our annual review of the police department, as you saw the data of how much they're using that language line, we're now trying to expand that to the fire department as well too. So now when both of those areas are having an emergency call, and let's just say there's a language barrier when they arrive to the scene. Now this language line access will allow them to communicate with families, allow them to direct families in whatever language that may be. Another another win that Pat also reviews is a lot of policy reviews through a human rights perspective and equity. So it's oftentimes, whether it's the police department, other departments, they'll forward their policies to us to ensure that it's equitable or there's a space for accommodations as well too. Lastly, this has been topics before. Our cultural flag program is also seen under human rights accessibility, something that we're hopefully looking to change in 2026. And then lastly, we also have a resident referral system. So what is that? So if a resident has an issue, what Pat's office has done, you can call in and explain that. And Pat basically has a list of different referral systems that we can refer you to based on what you're asking. And oftentimes you'd be surprised that, well, residents don't know what's out there. So it's really to get them in the know of, okay, based on what you're describing, you might want to take that maybe legal aid or take a look at X, Y, and Z to help them with their situation. Trainings that Pat conducts is our ADA process and also the disability training series. So each month, we focus on a certain ability or disability to raise awareness. Within our municipality, there's a fair of what you don't know. So there's a fear of how to work with people with disabilities. So we try to debunk that fear and also provide the best etiquette on how to address people with disabilities. Lastly, which I'm going to touch on the next slide, our 6 boards fall under human rights. So I'll actually go through that now. So one area that needed support and that I want to be better at is our 6 boards, right? So we have AAC, African American Black Affairs, LGBTQIA+, Human Rights Advisory Committee on the Status of Women, and the Latino Affairs. I know there's questions about our 2 recent boards, so I'll touch that now. So for African American Black Affairs and LGBTQIA+, come January, we'll be launching our first meetings with both of those. Pat and myself at the moment will serve as staff liaisons and get those committees going. All the seats are filled on that. Primarily, I made a choice to wait until we brought in one more member onto our team. But in 2026 for January, we'll get started with meetings on that. This was some of the training series that I was talking about, led under Pat's division. So each month they've done a good job of having presenters come in to touch on different topics. As you can see, there's visual impaired, dementia, mobility, hidden disabilities. These were the ones that recently passed. With any program that you're starting, it takes time to build up, but for the most part, we still get a good number of people, but I want to be better about getting more people and creating that culture where folks can leave their desks. This was the email that went out when we revamped our ADA process, which was a huge success. So that went out to the workforce, and since then, folks have been using that. So I'm curious to look at the data to see how much it's been utilized. I will cover this towards the end, but one project that Pat is working on is trying to implement lactation pods and pair spaces within the different buildings. This was a request and a need that came out through our ADA process. And I'm happy to say that this should be installed come February at City Hall, and hopefully we're expanding to the departments as well too. Our last office, the Training Professional Development. This is our more newly formed office that's spearheaded by Don Prescott. What he first did in his first 3 months was do an assessment of the city. So he broke it up into 2. He met with each department head to figure out where's the gaps when it comes to training, what are the department heads looking for their departments. What I like about his approach, we didn't only just take in what leadership wanted, but we also worked with the employees as well too, right? So we had employee focus groups, and the data did align and show that they were in sync with each other. So based on those needs, he's been rolling out a plan to address some of the needs based on that data. Some programs that are coming in 2026. the revamp of the new employee orientation, that's actually in place now. For those of you that don't know, we worked with HR in expanding our onboarding experience and making it 2 days. Now, day 2 is strictly dedicated to our DEI team, which it's around a lot of DEI concepts. And then day 1, it's all of your benefits. It's all of your HR roles that you have to do. And then day 2, they come to Seaver Street and we provide the rest of the training. So that's been pretty successful. We just had our second cohort in that. And so far, the reviews have been really positive of having 2 days of a full orientation. Right under the new employee orientation is the Management Academy. That's something that I'm really proud of this division putting together. So come February, we'll be launching a Management Academy. So you might ask, what is that? It's a 8 to 12 week program to assist managers to be successful in their positions, right? So what we've done is done an assessment of where are areas that managers are struggling and how do we provide them the tools to succeed. So each week is a different concept that they're learning, and they get takeaway home package sheets that they can review to. And majority of the instructors are either department heads that oversee or have expertise in that field, or other managers or ourselves on that. Something that this department is also working on is implementing an LMS system. For those who don't know that acronym, it's a learning management system. So it's basically for those that went to college and you had to pick out classes for next semester, that's a learning management system. It's a digital drop-down menu of the different classes or courses that you can take, and that's something that we want to implement within the city itself. And then lastly is the Employee Assistance Program, which they call EAP. That's another resources that employees have access to for different training. So Don will oversee that and try to ensure that we have those trainings on different days that folks can attend. As I said earlier, what Don worked on when he first got in is doing an assessment, and these were the top five trainings that the city wanted based on the data. So you have leadership development, Office 365, new supervisor manager training, conflict resolution and de-escalation was a really big one, specifically for departments that were public facing. I'm not sure if you know, but oftentimes it's not always easy dealing with the public, right? So assisting our employees how to stay calm, but also de-escalate when things get elevated. And the last year, communication and customer service. Other trainings that you all are aware of is the DI Academy for both public safety. So on the left, you have the Worcester Fire Department. On the right, you have the Worcester Police Department, right? So what I've done is worked with the department heads on what are the issues that we need to address. Specifically for the police department, I utilize the data from the DOJ report and the racial equity audit to create the curriculum to assist the officers, right? For me, it's more important that they continue to find ways to build trust within the community and have positive interactions. So I try to provide them with a lot of tools and theory-based things on how to, one, have interactions with the public, with things to be aware of. And then on the left with the fire department, that curriculum was really based on internal matters that they might have, right? So the way how a fire department works, when you do your shift, it's 48 on and you might have 1 off. But it's like college. You stay at the station, right? And things might arise. So how do you work with someone that you're staying in a college setting with until your shift is over? Earlier, we talked about the Management Academy. As I explained it, 8 to week 12 program. This is coming out in February. The goal of the academy is to help with professional development, but really equip our managers. I think something that I've been seeing is because you have a title does not speak to how you manage, right? You can be a very good chief equity officer and doing the work, but maybe you still need assistance on how you manage folks. So your title doesn't correlate to that. So that's an area that we need to continue to grow for our managers, especially in 2026. right? Our workforce is extremely diverse, and how do you manage a diverse workforce or diverse department is important that you practice on that skill. It's not something that comes with the title. These are some of the topics for that management academy, right? Respect and civility, all the way to being CPR certified. Some of the ones that I'm teaching is number 4, so managing a diverse workforce, and having a cross-cultural dialogue. Then you have leadership development, management principles, labor relation, addressing a poor workplace culture. So these would be the 13 weeks of what the management academy would look like. Last 2 slides coming up. As I said earlier, what the learning management system was. So this is under professional development. Basically a digital internal menu that folks will be able to now request what trainings they want before they're promoted, certain trainings they need to take. So just having an online digital access will be huge for the city. Another example of the new employee orientation that I said before. Prior to my arrival for day 1, we really only was focusing on benefits and HR policies and cybersecurity. We've now developed a more robust where you're learning about the workforce, the city culture makeup, right? It's important that you understand who are your residents, and who you're serving. And then day 2, more of that core DEI function that we're providing to our employees that come in, right? So we're covering what does it mean to be a municipal employee, foundation of DEI, discrimination by city policies, and so forth. To end, I want to share what I am working on or projects that I'm looking towards. So in 2026, as Guillermo stated, I've been in this position for a little over the year. So I'm excited to produce an annual report. It's an opportunity to showcase what my team has been working on. So that's something that I'm hoping that can be produced in the spring or the end of springtime. We're starting to engage in the annual report. Racial equity dashboard. So prior to my arrival, they done a racial equity audit. I wanted to make sure that that audit doesn't just get placed on a bookshelf and that we follow up on it. So what I've done is worked with the police department to ensure that we have steps to address what some of the recommendations were. I was getting a lot of feedback from the community of not knowing where we are in that process. So we created a digital dashboard that provides you a scope of where we are, what we have left, and what has been the impact based on the racial equity audit recommendations. So I've done that with the police department, so now I'm making my way to HHS and HR. Future projects. So ISD stands for Inspectional Service Division. I'm going to be partnering with our ISD team to find a way, how do we raise awareness or create an academy, whether it's for residents, mom and pop shops, landlords, or business owners, really, on some of the barriers that they might find as it pertains to the ISD area. So I'm working with Nick, our new commissioner, and I think it's a model that they adopted from Somerville, I believe, of providing like an academy informational for those that are owners of those small mom and pop shops. Oftentimes there's barriers for signing up for grants or going through the process or bidding process. So we're trying to provide them that information early and so they can be aware. Something that I'm going to engage with one of our chief of police on is creating a DEI plan. And that's something that I want to share with HRC on and see if we can partner on that. As I do some research around with other municipalities, not a lot of police departments publicly have a diversity and equity inclusion plan. So that's something that I'm looking forward to take up on. Guillermo, this might answer your question. So this third bullet point, Welcome to America Strategic Plan. So there is a campaign happening, which is called Welcome to America. What they look at is they work with every single municipality and try to gauge how welcoming you are to immigrants coming into the city. So that means from a municipality standpoint, what resources do you offer for immigrants coming in, right? And then based on how well you do, the city gets a designation. So you can get a 1 star all the way to 5. Right. Obviously, as Worcester, we're trying to push for a 5. So Pat and I engaged in different audits, interviews with this campaign. They've done it with every other department. So my department has been signed on creating a strategic plan. It's a twofold plan. The first fold is looking at our internal operations of what do we have out there for immigrants, and then external looking within our communities, what resources out there, and putting that plan together so it's transparent on some of the resources that we have for immigrants coming in. As I said earlier, my graduate studies, I really focused on affinity groups, and that's something that I want to provide to the workforce, right? As being the only Black male cabinet member, to have an affinity group or a space where I can seek mentorship or meet once a month to say, hey, I'm having challenges navigating as a Black male cabinet member. What are some of the tools or tricks that you use to navigate such a workforce, right? So affinity groups are extremely important, and I think, especially as being a marginalized, it's an area that can assist you. Equal employment opportunity and recruitment plan, as I said, it's something that Pat and HR is working on. With the amount of executive orders that the Trump administration put out, how do we continue to find ways to make sure we're paying attention to recruitment, outreach, and retention, and continue to find ways to make our hiring process more equitable. And the last 2 projects is the live name policy. For those that don't know what that means, there are folks who identify with different names from what they have from their birth name. And so we want to ensure that on our IDs that there's an option to have your live name rather than your dead name. So that's a policy that we're currently working on. As I spoke about earlier, is the lactation pods, and a project that Pat's working on that should be in place come February, and that'll be a huge win for the city, right? So for those that need to lactate, for those that have religious prayers or obligations, they would have a space to do that privately. That is what my first year looked like with the team. Just really want to shout out Pat and a lot of my direct reports and employees. Just what we've done within a year in a short amount of time has been pretty impressive compared to what other departments have been pushing out as well.
Wow, Kevin, sounds like you haven't really done much.
Just a little bit. I still have more space.
Well, I appreciate this very detailed report to us. I think that it was no surprise to us that you are doing a lot of work, but to kind of hear it flow in kind of this presentation format, I think is really helpful. I don't think that the work that you do should ever be justified, right? Like, I think that that's not the point of this type of report. It's more so to show just how busy you are and how necessary it is that you have a team, right? It's not just you, and it can't be just you, and it can't just be Pat, right? Like, it's more than that. Do any commissioners have any specific questions for the Chief Equity Officer? I know that obviously we spend a lot of time with him and stuff, so you may not, and some of these things may have surprised you, and you had no idea about it until just now. So any questions or comments for him?
I do.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead,
Randy.
Carrie. Go ahead.
Okay, Carrie.
No, let Carrie go.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to echo what Guillermo said. You certainly have accomplished a lot over the last year, and it was really helpful for me to see all of that broken down and hear about that too, because I don't always, get to see all facets of that. So I really appreciate the presentation and the work that you're doing here in the city. And my question was just around us as a Human Rights Commission and how you hope we can continue to support your work over the next year.
Yeah, through the chair, but I appreciate that. And too, in terms of our partnerships, there's a lot that we can do. I know we've discussed looking at the cultural flag policy. That's an area that that I still get a lot of pushback from our community on, which I do want to make sure I follow through. Creating the diversity plan for the Worcester Police Department, having the Human Rights Commission's eyes on it's going to be huge. So I think there's some critical projects where I can have your partnership on. I know behind the scenes with the chair and the vice chair, we're still looking at what this collaboration look like potentially for other areas as well too. Um, Even if there's things that I haven't mentioned, like I'm open to collaborating on, additional things that I might not be thinking of. But I think for the Human Rights Commission, things that are policy wise or having second eyes on is huge because you all kind of serve as that beacon of hope for the residents. So being able to bounce and brainstorm ideas off this group makes a big difference.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, Kevin, so that is a lot of work. Kudos to you. I wanted to ask you, what's the difference between what your new civil rights investigator is going to do and what Vic Perez does?
Good question, Randy. So there's no difference, just the title change. I can share with you all. As you know, DEI is very politically charged at the moment, and we were trying to find titles to speak to the workforce. There was a lot of uncertainty at the time for investigators. So if you're an investigator that's under a DEI office, you might ask yourself, "Oh, would this position go away anytime soon? Is there any funding towards this office?" Right, there's a few executive orders around certain initiatives with DEI or even with investigations around protected classes. So that impacted the workforce. So we're trying to be strategic with what titles we were using to ensure that there weren't any barriers on that. But it still all does the same. They all at the core, they all investigate under Vic Perez.
And what kind of cases will Vic investigate and what kind of cases will the new person investigate? Same or a little different?
It's same, but it's how we distribute the work, right? So Vic is the director, so he has two under him that he'll distribute. A case comes in, and we'll assign one investigator. It gets kicked up to Vic once it's done, and once Vic looks through it, then it gets kicked up to me, and then I kind of determine what the decision or next steps need to be. But it's all same. It's all about how we distribute the work.
What's an example of a kind of case that they would work on?
Yeah. So I had put up the different policies. So if any of those policies are violated, protected class harassment, sexual harassment, bullying, workplace violence, a slur, I'm trying to think if there's any more. So basically anytime a municipal employee has a complaint, our team always investigates it first. If protected class is involved, if bias is involved. If it doesn't fall under us, that means it gets kicked over to HR, and that's typically your code of conduct or management type of cases that they review. So we try to do, and this was also based off the racial equity audit, which the city manager implemented, is ensuring that between HR and DEI, there is a separation on what we're looking at, just to provide ourselves checks and balances. But to your question, Randy, so anything that has to do with bias or protected class, majority will cover that.
I see. Now, you had mentioned, Kevin, that the new committees, you were waiting for one more member on our team. Does that mean one more person in the committee or somebody who's going to be a liaison or with you or after you or something like that?
One more person on our staff, not the boards and commission.
I see. And is that new person the new human rights investigator that person, or is it a different person?
Different. So this one would fall under Pat's office, the Human Rights and Accessibility Coordinator. I wanted to wait until we fill that position for us to push out all six together because the staff liaisons are based in our department from that.
All right, and then that new management academy, that sounds very, very exciting. I just didn't realize that wouldn't be a human resources department project, that it was a DEI project. How does that get decided? Who's like, why that's yours and not theirs or something like that?
Yeah, good question. So two things. For the most part, we do try to collaborate with HR on a lot of trainings, but one of our divisions oversees professional development and training. So they've been tasked with providing trainings in-house. What HR does for trainings, they would do more of that transactional where if Pat needed to go to a conference and it was a Northeastern, HR takes care of that process. if Pat wanted to do training in-house internally, Don, our director, he finds a way to bring that in-house training. And so one thing that the city falls shorting is having their own homegrown type of programming. So now with all these programmings coming in, these are internal resources that the workforce can use. So to your question, why is it falling to us? Our division takes care of all of the internal trainings.
I see. And the new employee training is part of that?
No new employee training, that still falls under HR. It is part of the collaboration. So prior to my arrival, they used to do 1 day, half a day where it was, you cover benefits, HR policies, cyber security, and that's it. Well, we've said, hey, let's partner together and extend it to 2 days. So this project still falls under HR, but we assist and oversee day 2 of the onboarding process. So we extended it to 2 days, and to us, that's a training because it covers all of the DEI topics.
I see. And then the last thing is, I kind of lost track a little about what you said. It made it sound like a really good point, but I got lost a little. That you wanted to make sure that some sort of previous work to you didn't just sit on a shelf, that it was actually activated and used. What was that again?
So the racial equity audit, I believe my predecessor, so Stephanie Williams, started that project. We used an outside consultant. They came in and did an audit on HHS, Human Resources, and the Worcester Police Department. They only did the audit and provide us the recommendations. Stephanie left, and then I came in, and what I said is, well, we did all this work. We have the data. We have the recommendations. Now let's address those recommendations and implement them. So that's what I mean. I didn't want to just make sure that we did a whole survey and collect the data and then we don't do anything with that data. So we took that off the shelf and make sure that my department kind of spearheads to keep those departments accountable for making sure that they reach those recommendations.
Great work, Kevin. All the best to you. Great work, and it's very impressive what you've done.
I appreciate it. I'm going to continue to always echo that. I have the easier job. I just assign. It's really the department, including Pat, that does a lot of the legwork around here. So I have the easier job.
It's very humble, Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I can see Pat smiling about that.
Mm-hmm.
Any
Thank you
other
for all your work,
commissioners
Kev.
have questions? Carrie, you had a question.
Oh, I asked my question.
Oh, sorry.
That's
Okay.
okay.
I do want to point out there has been a good partnership with the city clerk office. I was actually a part of Rob Bellata, or City Councilor Bellata's orientation, where now we've partnered with providing some of the trainings to the city councilors, specifically with city policies, the investigation process, and then to how to establish respect and civility. Something that I've talked to them about is how do we practice politics in a civil way, especially in 2026, which was well received, and there seems like to be more of an appetite for some more of these trainings.
That was really good training.
Thank you, Bellata.
To the chair, Kevin, I'm listening to everything you have. It looked like you got off the ground running. Seemed like you have purpose, and it seemed like you have the enthusiasm and the passion, and that you're able to cross the line at the finish block. And I just commend you for the structure, the layout, and putting things, not just have it like ideal, but put it in action. And I want to commend you on that. The overall presentation was just exemplary, and I definitely bid you, great in the effort. And it seemed like I heard, it reminded me of being retirement. The great thing about retirement, you could wake up when you finish sleeping, but the downside of retirement is the honey-do list. And sometime I believe I'll be dead before I finish my list, but I hope you'll be alive to finish yours. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
Great work.
Through the chair, Dr. Reese, I appreciate that. I've been doing this work for some time, so you just gotta really take it one day at a time. A lot of officers get burnt out when they don't either have the support or And to be honest, officers really get burnt out because they take that work with them. It impacts them in their personal life. As someone who identifies as a marginal community member, I have my own battles, so I try to do my best with my team each day, that we do what we can and control what we can.
Excellent. I commend you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, Kevin, for the presentation. Pat, do we have the date for next month's meeting?
We have January 26th of 2026.
Great. Put that in your calendars. The Randy, Kevin, Pat, and I will work on the agenda and let you all know ahead of time. If you have anything that you want us to consider, please let us know. Commissioner Bellata, it's been an honor having you on the commission. And I'm excited to call you Counselor Bellata the next time I see you.
Thanks, Kira. No, it's really been great working with everyone. I think it's been informative, you know what I mean? And it definitely look forward to taking like the knowledge and some of the topics that we were talking about here and you know, keeping that and trying to, you know, in my mind and trying to move, you know, some of these initiatives forward on council. I know different entities, but I think, you know, there's a lot of ways that we can, you know, continue to work together. So I'm excited to support your all work and see you around town.
Great. So Pat, I just want to remind you, you're going to send out the municipal research thing on police oversight. So we'll all read it for the next meeting. Everyone should know it's a little bit long, so don't leave it for just that day or the night before. It's going to take, you want to break it up when you read it. It takes a few sit downs to get through it.
That's coming from Randy, so send that along. All right. Thanks again, everyone. The happiest of holidays. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Awesome. Pat, can I get a roll call, please?
So we have a motion to adjourn at 8:08 p.m. by Dr. Reese and seconded by Carrie Witherall. I'm going to take a very short roll call vote. Chair Guillermo Creamer Jr.
Aye.
Vice Chair Randy Feldman.
Aye.
Clerk Carrie Witherall.
Aye.
Member Reverend John Slavinskis.
Aye.
Member Dr. Bernard Reese.
Aye.
Member Rob Bellata.
Aye.
And Member Anahit Merudian.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. We're adjourned. That's unanimous. Happy holidays to all of you, and we'll see you next year.
Happy
Right.
holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays, everyone.
Peace out.